Universal's Halloween Horror Nights, known for their high production, massive scale, and top-of-the-line haunted houses, it's no wonder you'll find so many actors, musicians, pro wrestlers, and Las Vegas magicians clamoring at the chance to be involved with the world's premier Halloween event. These are 8 surprising celebrities that were part of Halloween Horror Nights. Number 1. This Is the End 3D at Universal Hollywood in 2015. Based off of the 2013 blockbuster hit This Is the End, a comedy horror film with a superstar cast of Seth Rogan, James Franco, Jonah Hill, Danny McBride, Michael Cera, Craig Robinson, Channing Tatum, Emma Watson, Rihanna, and many more, all of which portray themselves as they experience an apocalyptic event that just so happens to play out during a big Hollywood get-together. Let me just say, this house kind of blows the 8 celebrity cameos thing I mentioned earlier out of the water. I think we might actually have 8 cameos in this house alone. Well, anyways, the house in Hollywood would take place in the extended queue of the Mummy ride located on the lower lot. The facade itself was themed after the exterior of James Franco's house from the movie. Guests would be greeted from above with a impaled corpse of Michael Cera on a light post. Because nothing says home sweet home like a shish kebab Scott Pilgrim. This is probably my favorite concept art I have ever seen. Yeah, this is the official concept art from Universal. The house was filled with scenes from the movie that included some pretty amazing practical effects and masks resembling Jonah Hill and others, ending with a trip to heaven.
Welcome to heaven.
Just kidding, it was hell, where you would find the melting corpse of Michael Cera and Jason Segel, who, if I stand correctly, was only in the film for a few minutes. Aesthetically, the house was done in a 3D style, hence the 3D tagline attached to the name, which was a very common effect used across Horror Nights events at the time. As I mentioned, this was probably the highest celebrity appearances per capita of any house featured on this list, with appearances from fake Emma Watson, Craig Robinson, Jonah Hill twice, and Channing Tatum. Yeah, just watch the movie, you'll understand. Also, the real-life celebrities themselves featured in video log style clips in between the rooms that were pulled directly from the movie. Overall, kind of exactly what it needed to be, a very fitting comedy house for a one-of-a-kind film. Number 2. The Weeknd After Hours Nightmare at Universal Florida and Hollywood in 2022. The most recent installment on our list comes to us from Halloween Horror Nights 31, when pop sensation The Weeknd took Horror Nights by storm in both his Orlando and Hollywood houses that year. What was originally met with some hesitancy within the Horror Nights fandom, I mean, after all, out of all of the musicians that could have been involved with Horror Nights, a top 40 singer-songwriter wouldn't be most people's first choice. But after guests saw the end product, they fully understood how well this would work. Based off of his 2020 hit album After Hours, the house took guests through the surreal nightmarish masquerade that was the series of viral music videos released alongside the album. It was a nice, refreshing house after what was an otherwise dark, monstrous event that year. I was a huge fan of this house, and it actually cracked my top 3 when it was all said and done, with each scene set-wise being almost polar opposite of the last, closing with a strobe-induced gauntlet of mannequin scares. It was a huge highlight of Horror Nights 31 for sure. Much like many of the other Horror Nights celebrity cameos on this list, this house was considered a massive draw for guests that normally would never attend the event. And just 2 years later, The Weeknd would be used again as part of the 2024 Hollywood lineup. I am a little bummed we didn't get a version out here in Florida, but after the seemingly nightly 4-hour-plus lines Hollywood saw in 2022 for this house, it makes perfect sense why The Weeknd made a return out on the West Coast. Number 3. Ozzy Osborne with Black Sabbath 13 3D at Universal Hollywood in 2013.
How do we take Black Sabbath and turn it into basically like a horror movie is what we're doing. We're creating a horror movie. The first thing I listened to was Black Sabbath on Black Sabbath, and the part where you're screaming, you know,
"Oh no, God, please help me!"
Yeah, and I went, "This is a horror movie."
When we started, I remember when we started playing that live on stage. People would visibly get scared and run up.
It is scary. It still scares me.
Right? Are you going to be playing that
That's the first scene.
One of these 6 haunted mazes featured during the 2013 event in Hollywood, located in the lower lot, Black Sabbath 13 3D, was a descent in a demon-filled cathedral, graveyards, madhouse, corpse-filled battlefields, and a nuclear apocalypse with mutated beasts, all inspired by the discography and lore of the legendary rock band Black Sabbath. The house would feature pretty gruesome characters, some of which taken straight from the album artwork of the band. Luckily, for those who weren't able to experience it, some beautiful concept art was posted by creative director / executive producer of Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood, John Murdy, who was a diehard fan of the band to begin with. So getting to work alongside the band members Ozzy Osborne, Geezer Butler, and Tony Iommi must have been a dream come true. As presumed, the audio included popular songs from Black Sabbath's catalog with hits like Paranoid, Children of the Grave, Iron Man, and War Pigs, which were also some of the characters in the house itself. This house was also done in the 3D style. Guests were encouraged to bring traditional red/blue 3D glasses, which brought a new dynamic to the house. This laser tag-esque neon look severely changed the color palette that fans were used to seeing Black Sabbath represented in, but played off very well and instantly became one of the most popular attractions at the 2013 event. Unlike the Weeknd house and a few others we'll get to later, Black Sabbath 13 did not include any scare actors portraying the band members. It is unknown why this decision was made, but in my opinion, it wasn't a bad choice. It didn't really feel necessary and still conveyed the overall theme and story through the soundtrack alone. Although it would have been nice to see the head of a bat bitten off at least once. Number 4, The Undertaker No Mercy at Universal Hollywood in 2000. Drawing inspiration from the many eras of the 7-time world champion The Undertaker, this was the first and, as of time of recording, only partnership between WWE and Halloween Horror Nights. One of the headlining attractions of the 2000 season, featuring not just The Undertaker but other recognizable wrestling figures like Paul Bearer, Kane, and Mankind, who would walk above guests on a caged ceiling in the Hell in a Cell room. I would love to show more of this house itself, but unfortunately the only footage available online was from an ad featured on Monday Night Raw back in 2000. And due to WWE's strict YouTube policies, I've already shown everything within this house that I can. Promotion for the haunted house included some pretty cool moments, like a small in-park parade and Igor Awards ceremony, an on-again, off-again event hosted by Horror Nights Hollywood that aimed to honor excellence and achievement in the horror and sci-fi genre.
Universal, I really want to thank you for honoring me with this award. Some of the people, the other recipients that have been given this award, I feel like I'm in very prestigious company. Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper.
As of right now, there seem to be no future plans for a WWE Horror Nights tie-in, but with the amount of spooky storylines going on at the moment, could we see a future Firefly Funhouse or Wyatt Six House in the future? Only time will tell, but until then, we must rest in peace. I'm sorry. Number 5, Penn and Teller nuked Vegas at Universal Florida in 2012.
Hi, I'm Penn Jillette of Penn & Teller, and I'm at Universal Orlando, where we're part of their whole Halloween thing. We have our own house called Penn & Teller Nuked Las Vegas, and we help design it with the Universal cats. And the most important thing is when you come here, don't know anything about it. You don't want to know anything about it at all. It all has to be a surprise. Like you put on these 3D glasses when you go in, and the first thing that jumps out at you is like this fat, like Elvis. There's an Elvis there, and there's also a dealer, and there's all these waitresses that have these crooked mouths, and they're jumping out from the wall.
For the 22nd year of the event in Orlando, Halloween Horror Nights collaborated with world-renowned magicians Penn and Teller for a brand new 3D house. Oh my god, what is with these 3D houses? What, like, who wants this? The premise was simply Las Vegas during a nuclear fallout, with all of the characters and locations you'd expect to see in a recreation of Vegas, just a little mutated. This was located in the second sprung tent just behind the Men in Black area of the park, and featured the iconic Welcome to Las Vegas sign outside of the entrance, but it had clearly seen better days. You know, you could actually still find part of this exact sign in Lakeland, Florida at the Lakeland Antique Mall, as well as a few other items you might just find later on in this video. As a huge fan of magic myself, I would have loved this house. They even had a recreation of the backstage area from their show at the Rio in Las Vegas, which I was very fortunate to see back in November of last year. One of the other cool aspects of this house was the buffet. In traditional Las Vegas fashion, guests would browse a delectable selection of batch-made eats. Unfortunately, this fake food was not edible, but just on the other side of a one-way mirror just above the counter, guests walking by the opposite direction would pass by this switchboard, which would be able to trigger effects like a vibrating floor, air cannons, or some water effects, all of which put the scaring in the hands of the people walking in front of you, closing out with screens of the magic duo saying farewell to guests just before they exit the house, where if you were lucky on one particular night would find the actual Penn and Teller greeting guests or even just chilling behind the poker table in the house. No, I am definitely not jealous whatsoever. Number 6. Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare at Universal Hollywood and Florida in 2011 and 2012. The exact same year that Penn and Teller created magic at Horror Nights Florida, the godfather of shock rock himself, Alice Cooper, made his first appearance in Orlando. For those younger and possibly not familiar with Alice Cooper, he grew to fame in the 70s with hits like School's Out, No More Mr. Nice Guy, and $1 Billion Babies, but was also known for his shocking and sometimes horrific theatrical live shows, with large props, stage illusions, and more, revolutionizing live concerts in the rock and metal genre for generations. By 2012, the rock star hadn't seen a hit song in nearly 40 years or so, but the drop in popularity seemed to not affect the draw to this house in particular. Entering through a giant Alice Cooper head, guests would catch a glimpse into a sort of highlight reel of his live shows. Unlike the Black Sabbath or Penn and Teller house, Cooper had no issue with scare actors portraying him. Actually, it seemed like that was the point of the whole house. Silicone masks were created to replicate the singer's signature facial features and were worn by so many scare actors in this house, most likely due to the fact that it was probably difficult to find a lookalike of a 60-year-old rocker within the audition pool of primarily 20-year-olds. Much like The Weeknd and Black Sabbath, the soundtrack was all the greatest hits from Alice Cooper's catalog. Danny, you are somebody who's very familiar with both Alice Cooper and this house. What did you think of the house way back in 2012?
I grew up an Alice Cooper fan, so going into this house, I was always pretty excited for it. From what I remember, it being it's been over 10 years now.
12 years.
Wow, 12 years now. Each room you went into was a different song. So like with School's Out, you were like in a high school like hallway, and there were like lockers and like kids that were all like messed up and freaky looking and stuff like that. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good house that year.
If I could go back in time and be a vlogger during this era of Halloween Horror Nights houses, I would in a heartbeat. But I don't have to because Danny.
Oh God.
Did you know that Danny is an OG Halloween Horror Nights vlogger? I've recently stumbled upon a bunch of his old videos and they're really, really solid. Maybe he'll get back into it soon. Maybe?
Maybe. Hard maybe.
Hard maybe? Okay. Number 7, Slash at Universal Hollywood. Unlike fellow rock stars of his era, this rock and roll Hall of Famer and most famously guitarist of Guns N' Roses did not have a haunted house of his own, but since 2014 has been working on and off in collaboration on original soundtracks for Horror Nights Hollywood houses. Clowns 3D, the original Universal Monsters house, Frankenstein Meets the Werewolf Man, The Bride of Frankenstein Lives, Legends Collide, Unmasked, and Eternal Bloodlines. With his first project way back in 2014, Clowns 3D, yeah I know 3D, securing himself a cameo in the house itself. One scene sees the classic gag of clowns piling into a small car, except one of the mannequin heads is none other than the clown version of Slash. With his iconic top hat, shades, and curly hair, it was a very subtle yet deserving shout out to the rock icon. Here I stand in what is soon to be the Enter the Blumhouse scare zone of the 2024 season of Horror Nights Orlando. This San Francisco area has been home to so many solid stories and themes from the past few years, but for this next celebrity, we must shift our Dragula into reverse and head back to 2019. Number 8, Rob Zombie at Universal Hollywood and Florida. The final musician on our list and arguably the most fitting for the Horror Nights aesthetic, Mr. Zombie is not only a world-class shock rocker known for his hits like Dragula, Living Dead Girl, and Thunderkiss 65, but also a writer and director of a multitude of horror films including House of a Thousand Corpses in 2003, Halloween and Halloween 2, no not those, these, and the most recent installment of The Munsters, all of which have some pretty interesting reviews available online if you care to browse Rotten Tomatoes. But the combination of the two endeavors did make him a great fit for Halloween Horror Nights, with a long list of features like the thrilling, chilling world of Rob Zombie in Hollywood in 1999, Rob Zombie's American Nightmare in Hollywood in 2000, Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses in 3D Zombie Vision in 2010 and 2011 in Hollywood, House of a Thousand Corpses in 2019 in Hollywood, and the Rob Zombie Hellbilly Deluxe Scare Zone in 2019 in Florida. Focusing on the most recent and the one with the most footage available because it was a scare zone, Hellbilly Deluxe, located in the San Francisco area of Universal, Florida, and based off of his debut solo album Hellbilly Deluxe. This area had plenty of Rob Zombie minions, or at least that's what I'm calling them because I don't know exactly what these are, and some more suggestive characters than what you'd typically find at Horror Nights in past years, as well as a Rob Zombie scare actor who must have been in control of the auxiliary cable because the soundtrack of the Scare Zone was simply the album it was named after front to back. Also featured was a replica of Dragula, a coffin-shaped drag race car introduced in a 1965 episode of The Munsters and has since grown to be a fairly popular horror topic, which might be credited to the Rob Zombie song after the same name. You can actually find the car used in the Scare Zone, also located at the Lakeland Antique Mall. In 2019, Rob Zombie himself made it out to Horror Nights Hollywood.
I'm here with Sherry Moon Zombie and Rob Zombie, and we're about to go through the maze for House of a Thousand Corpses here at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights.
See, this has now become one of my favorite things. Seeing celebrities or actors whose stories are told at Halloween Horror Nights and getting to see them experience the houses firsthand. That is one thing I forgot to mention, this happens fairly often. It's become a thing of the past few years of Halloween Horror Nights, holding mini photo shoots of celebrities as they visit the event, many of which are in Hollywood because it's just a short drive for most. Does this count on the list? Absolutely not. They were just visitors. And I know, before you bring it up, cameos related to Halloween Horror Nights shows like Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure, I wasn't planning on counting those in this video, but rather saving it for a history video on its own. Just so I know you made it all the way to the end of this video, please let me know in the comment section down below, what celebrity related Halloween Horror Nights house would you like to see in the future? I know people have been begging for a Billie Eilish or Slipknot house in the past, so let your voices be heard. It's also one of the only ways that I know you're a real one and made it all the way to the end of the video. Just like the real ones over on my Pity Crew Patreon. If you're looking to help support this channel nearly 500 times more than simply clicking on a YouTube video, check that out in the link below for exclusive vlogs and some pretty fun Horror Nights stuff coming up. Oh, and if you're interested in seeing that Lakeland Antique Mall video, it's going to be right here, or another really fun Horror Nights video over on this side. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Ryan. This is For Love of Theme Parks, and I'll see you guys in the fog.